Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. The Tea Party movement is an American political movement that advocates strict adherence to the United States Constitution, reducing U.S. government spending, taxes, and the federal budget deficit, and paying down the U.S. national debt. The movement is partly conservative, partly libertarian, and partly populist. The movement has sponsored protests and supported political candidates since 2009. Michelle Moore is the executive director and a founding member of the St. Louis Tea Party Coalition. Ms. Moore has been active in the Tea Party movement since February of 2009. On February 19, 2009, Rick Santelli, the CNBC business commentator, spent 5 minutes rebutting the idea of government intervention in the mortgage market. Mr. Santelli went on to say, "We are thinking about having a Tea Party in Chicago in July." From that comment, a national protest movement began. Michelle Moore, welcome to Conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
Did you actually hear that, or you just heard about it?
No, actually, I did not hear it. I received a phone call later in the evening after that had taken place from another activist that I had been working with who lived in Tennessee, and he said, "Did you hear this great rant that Santelli did today?" And I said, "No, I didn't hear it. I've been working all day and doing some other things." So he sent me a link to it, and he said, "I want to do this. I want to do this. We need to get some other organizations involved. Let's get them on the phone. Let's set up a conference call, and let's make it happen."
But you guys didn't wait till July, did you?
No, we put everything together in about 2 weeks.
And so what was it, February, March, that you were out with your Down by the Arch,
Yes,
correct?
Down by the Arch, right at the very end of February on a very cold February day.
Yeah.
We said, "Welcome to St. Louis, and thanks for coming out."
Right, and from that moment, it was pretty spectacular. In those days, you were getting a lot of positive press from the Post-Dispatch and from the television networks, weren't you?
Well, I don't know that we were getting a lot of positive press. We did get some in the beginning. I think a lot of people were very skeptical. A lot of the press, I know Betsy Bruce kind of gave us a little bit of a frown. She came down that day and she was like, "I just don't understand what's going on. I don't know what you guys are doing. I just don't grasp what the problem is, you know." So we had a little bit of that. But I think it was more just skepticism in the very beginning than some of the press that we've gotten since then.
Mm-hmm. And how would you characterize today's press?
Oh, I think it's very biased. I think they refuse to see that there's a possibility that anyone could possibly disagree with the policies of the Obama administration beyond anything besides his race or, you know, your own bigotry or whatever ridiculous statement that they want to make. I think that a lot of the press for not only the Tea Party movement, but all of the grassroots organizations right now has been very bad. They really want to paint us in a very bad corner rather than giving us the ability to say, you know, we simply disagree with a lot of the decisions that are being made. I heard a gentleman on a radio interview not too long ago, and he said, you know, if the Tea Party and the grassroots would just disagree with his policies, I would listen to you, but it's all about race. And I think I'm thinking as I'm listening to this, we're always trying to disagree with his policies. You won't let us. You don't even give us the ability to get that far. As soon as we start talking, then it becomes about his race.
Right, okay, but there are black members of the Tea Party coalition,
yes,
is there not?
Yes, there are.
Influential, not just fringe members.
Well, take Herman Cain, for instance. I mean, when Herman Cain first came on the scene, I was a huge fan of Herman Cain. I love Allen West. I mean, we have people who are in government now that represent Mia Love, you know, that are representing Tea Party values and Tea Party type of politics, that are African American, that are all races and, you know, Asians, and I mean, it's all inclusive group. It definitely is. It's just that that's always from the other side what it becomes about. We want to disagree with your policies, but you won't let us.
Mm-hmm. There was an event that I covered. This was I can't remember the date, but it was before the 2010 elections. This was at Forest Park Community College in St. Louis. This was when Senator McCaskill was supposed to be at this meeting, but she didn't come to that. She sent representatives.
Right.
And I was shocked at, I mean, they had one room set up, and it was just like, it filled right up. So they had to really move this thing downstairs to like the cafeteria.
Right.
And that was full.
Right. I remember
And it was
that.
like, holy cow, this is really something going on here. And there was a long, long line of people who, were making comments that had nothing to do with race, as I recall.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's when Paul Kurtman made his famous diatribe against Claire McCaskill and said, what gives you the right to essentially decimate the Constitution as you have been?
And then he went on to
Yes.
run and to win a state representative seat in
Yes.
the state of Missouri.
Right.
So and then 2010 came along, and there was huge success, electoral success, for the Republican Party, of which the Tea Party felt that they had a large part. Is that correct?
Yes, we did. We had quite a bit of influence during that election cycle. I think we had a lot of people out who were working the ground, and a lot of people, actual Tea Party members who were running for various positions, committeemen, committeewomen, state representatives like Paul Kurtman, stuff like that. So yeah, we were very involved in those 2010 elections.
So 2010 comes, and then that's like 2 years ago now, right? Today is November 27th, so if anybody is looking at this after the fact and anything's changed, today's the 27th. So it was about 2 years ago now that everybody was flush with success. Then what happened?
Well, I think a lot of people want to say that the Tea Party has gone away, and I would absolutely disagree with that on a couple of different counts. For one thing, as I said, a lot of our membership has run for office, right? So now they're in office and they're trying to make a difference that way, and they're on school boards, and they're taking all kinds of positions where they feel like they're getting in to the political scene and trying to change it that way, because that seems to be, we've learned over the last several years that trying to change it from the outside in isn't working. So we want to get in there and sort of do the reform from the inside.
Well, when you say we, you are talking about a smaller group of people, as opposed to when I was at Keener Plaza covering, and it was like just this, I mean, there was like thousands and thousands and thousands of people who were in there.
I don't think it's a smaller group. I think that they're just, we're not out waving signs anymore. We're not out making a lot of noise anymore because we're busy doing the work. So I don't necessarily agree that it's a smaller group of people. I just think we're not quite as loud now. Now we're actually in and doing the work, trying to get busy on doing the work, affecting legislation in Jeff City, and again, running for these different positions. And so we're just taking a different approach. I don't know that there's less people, they're just doing it a different way.
Well, would you comment on then what this recent election did not, the 2012, did not turn out nearly as well as the 2010 from your perspective? What happened between 2010 and 2012?
Well, I think a presidential election is a lot bigger than the midterm elections, so I think you've got that going on. Because you're going to get a much bigger turnout for the folks who are going to vote in the presidential election. You'll have people who will vote in the presidential election that will not vote in any other election. So
that's true. I mean,
I think that's a part of it.
I find that I'm an election supervisor, and I'm like just amazed at the number of people that I've never seen before, and then they show up, for the presidential election, but they won't vote for the people who can actually tell them whether they can park in front of their house or not.
Right.
But they will come and vote for the president.
Right.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
That's okay. So I think that that's a big part of it, is that you're just going to have a bigger turnout during the presidential election. And so that's going to affect the numbers both ways, right? You're going to have more folks voting Democratic. I also think that the Obama administration has done a really good job getting the youth vote out. I think that the GOP has not done a good job of getting the youth vote out. I mean, younger voters tend to be more liberal anyway. But I think that you could appeal to them on a lot of the fiscal and small government issues and those sorts of things in particular, if you were a little better at courting that particular demographic. And I think the GOP has failed on that. I think that's one of the ways that we really need to change our game. We need to start appealing to the younger voters and pointing out to them the decisions that they're making now are going to, when they get a little bit older, that's going to make a huge difference in their life. It's going to have a huge impact in their tax rates and the things that they're going to be able to accomplish once they get married and start having families of their own. So I think that's a big part of it. I also think that many independents were probably very apathetic. I have to be completely honest. I doubt that they were very happy about President Obama or President-elect Mitt Romney, or potential-elect Mitt Romney. Governor Romney.
Yes.
So I don't think they were happy with either of those choices. And so I feel like then with some of that vote, we also lost some of the independents who simply did not turn out. So I think when you combine all three of those factors, that's where you get Mitt Romney losing and Obama winning.
You said that the GOP was pretty horrible at bringing out the youth vote. Is there something that the Tea Party movement can or should do to affect that vote?
Well, that is one of the things that we're actually looking at right now. After the elections were over, obviously we were all furiously meeting, and we've got more meetings coming up, and a lot of the leaders of the various organizations are trying to get together and say, well, where do we go from here? What's next? And there's a lot of different ideas out there, a lot of things being floated right now about what we need to do to improve voter turnout. But St. Louis Tea Party Coalition is looking at, well, how do we reach the younger voters? How can we expand on these principles of small government and fiscal responsibility, and then turn that around into the demographic of the younger voter and show them how that appeals to them and how that benefits them. Sort of regardless of some of the other issues, that this is the most important thing. I mean, if you have a good economy, a lot of other things follow along with that, that are great for everyone. You have good economy, you have jobs, you have the ability to pay for college, you have the ability to buy a house. You don't have to live at home until you're 26 and stay on your parents' insurance. Wouldn't it be better to be out of the house and be on your own and have your own insurance? So I think you appeal to them that way. But we're really looking at a lot of different things right now. I will say we haven't settled on a particular strategy as far as what St. Louis Tea Party Coalition is going to do, but that will be one of our major focuses in the next 2 years.
You're a small business person yourself, right?
I am.
Right. You're not somebody's employee.
No.
You're a small business person. And I've often wondered, de Tocqueville, back in the early part of the 18th century, the 1800s, when he came to the United States, one of the things that he wrote about the United States was that this was a nation of shopkeepers. In other words, people like yourself who worked for themselves. They weren't somebody's employee. But here in America, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, over a period of a couple of generations, we've gone from where there used to be huge numbers of people that work for themselves and had control of their own lives to where they don't anymore. Mm-hmm. They're just, they're employees. Mm-hmm. And they're used to the idea of somebody simply, an employer handing out. So suddenly, it seems to me the government has just substituted itself for the employer. How do we change people's attitudes so that they have an understanding of what to be in charge of your own life means that you have to run your own business?
Right. I think that's a great question. And there are a lot of things you can do. One of the things that prompted me to start my own business was I was between jobs, and I said, well, I can't be any worse off if I'm out trying to make my own future better than relying on someone else to make my future better, because that's not safe either, especially as the economies have changed and the world has changed and America has changed. You don't have the same job security that maybe my parents had, where you got a job when you were 20 years old and you worked that job until you were 65 and you retired and you had your pension and you had your Social Security.
Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah, exactly.
McDonnell Douglas.
And those jobs
Mallinckrodt.
Those jobs are few and far between now. So I just felt like there was more actual opportunity for me if I went out and was in control of my own future. And I think you instill that in the younger people. You point out to them that, you want to control your life. You spend all of your teenage years fighting against your parents, right? I want control. I want to make my own decisions. And then you go to college and you become an adult. The last thing you want to do is continue to be dependent, whether it's on your parents or on the government. So make your own future. And you just have to you have to encourage them to see that it's not a more tenuous future to be a small business owner or do your own thing or go your own path. That's no more scary than going to work for a company right now that may ship jobs overseas or may close down or may have a giant strike like Hostess just did. I mean, there's no more or less security, I don't think, these days in doing one thing or the other. It's all about the amount of risk you're willing to take.
Mm-hmm. So the Tea Party is having discussions now about, how to affect the vote, I guess the vote in general,
Yes.
but young people. Who are young people? What age group are we talking about?
I'm going to say everybody under 30, between 18 and 30. Those are that's the target that the Obama administration has done very well with, and the Republicans have not done very well with.
And what is it that they have heard that encouraged them to vote for the Democrat Party in the 2012 election, and what would you like them to hear so that they vote differently in 2014 and 2016?
Well, I think that it's probably more the negative attitude about the GOP more so than what the Democrats are offering. I mean, I think there are some social issues that a lot of younger people, I mean, the younger generation is much more liberal on things like gay marriage and abortion and stuff like that, and we know that. We know the statistics bear that out.
Smoking marijuana.
Right. So the statistics bear that out. And so that's probably not a winning issue with the young people regardless. But I think you can go beyond that, right? I mean, again, you go back to economics, taxes, small government. You don't want your parents telling you what to do from the time you're 14 till you're 18. Why do you want the government then telling you what you can and cannot do? How big your soda can be in New York City, right? Or how much fat content. In New York City, they're not giving fresh made food to homeless people who need food because they can't judge the fat calories and the calorie content and the fat content in this food now. I mean, these are ridiculous laws. And if it starts somewhere like there's nothing stopping it from coming to St. Louis or, going beyond that. So I think if what you want when you're younger is freedom and the ability to make decisions for yourself, you need to carry that into your adulthood and not say, well, the government giving me everything is what I want to do.
What do you make of young people in that category that you're talking about that go to World Trade Organization meetings and then the next thing you know they're smashing in like all the downtown windows in Seattle?
I don't know what to make of those guys. I don't understand. Anarchy isn't going to get us anywhere either. And I think it's sort of a weird dichotomy because it's as though, well, we want the government to provide us everything, yet we almost want anarchy. They sort of want both things, I think, in like the Occupy Wall Street movement and some stuff like that, the folks who protested G20. I mean, I don't understand what they hope to accomplish with that kind of thing. We're all peace and loving until we want to throw a trash can through your window. It's a very strange thing, but I think that's a very small minority. I mean, I don't think those are really the people that we're appealing to anyway.
Why do you think that the press sometimes confuses them and the Tea Party movement? When I read or see some news on television, it's almost as if when they're describing the Tea Party, that it is the Tea Party that either is or on the verge of violence.
Well, I'm not sure where the press comes up with that. I mean, we've been hearing that for the last several years, that we're so gun-toting, so violent, and you guys better watch out for us, and we're just a bunch of crazy mobsters. And, it's so funny to me to hear that because I've been active in this movement from the very beginning, and I think in any party or political system, you're going to have folks who are on the fringe who behave badly, and nobody wants to be associated with that on the right or the left. I mean, so if you discount that, you have everybody else in the middle who are just regular American citizens who are out expressing their point of view. And when it was the left doing it, and you look back in the 60s and you had the sit-ins and you had all of this, sort of peaceful protests, well, the Tea Party rallies have been no different than that. I mean, we may be waving signs or walking around in George Washington outfits, but we're not out shooting off our guns and, beating up people in the middle of the street. So I think in the majority of the movement, if you dismiss the fringe elements of every side, I think you have a perfectly reasonable movement where folks are just expressing their displeasure with the way the government's being run.
So what would the St. Louis Tea Party Coalition like to achieve over the next few months between now and 2014? and the longer view to 2016?
Well, I think the big focus right now is the 2014 midterms. I think we're really looking at what's going to happen in the next 2 years and how we can affect change between now and then. So again, appealing to those younger voters, continuing to spread the message that what the Democrats are saying, that the Republicans want the women to die in childbirth and stay in the kitchen and be barefoot and pregnant. These are
be pushed off a cliff.
Or be pushed off a cliff, exactly. That these are all completely false narratives. We may disagree with the way this administration is running this country, but that doesn't mean that we want completely ridiculous things to happen instead. So we need to find a better way of selling our message rather than being painted, having a picture painted of us by the Democrats. And I think that's where we've really lost out beyond the young voters, is allowing the Democrats to create the narrative and then sort of fighting against that rather than being proactive and saying, look, this is our message. This is our very positive message. These are the very positive things that we want for this country. And no, all of those things they're saying are completely ridiculous. Nobody wants that. I mean, it's foolish to even imply that anybody would want that.
Do you feel that that there's a problem in the electoral process? I mean, in the actual electoral process, where the people vote, but the votes are counted different than they actually voted?
Well, I think probably you have some voter fraud and some things like that going on both sides of the fence. But I don't think, and we've looked at a lot of the statistics. In fact, Bill Hennessy and I and a couple other people were just having a meeting not too long ago. And you're going to have some voter fraud. That stinks. We need to eliminate it. We do need to address those issues. But it is such a small percentage of what's going on that it wasn't going to affect the outcome of the election either way. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, yes, you don't want 3% voter fraud, but that wouldn't have make or break the election as the results stood.
Now you're based out of Missouri. Mm-hmm. Do you also have influence in Metro East?
I think,
or are they a separate group? I
don't know so much about the Metro East. We have worked with, there are a few Tea Party groups or other grassroots organizations in like Southern Illinois and in other surrounding areas that we've tried to work with, and we have coordinated efforts with in the past. You know, our particular Tea Party group, we do try to reach out to some of the other Tea Party groups, either to assist them with things that they're working on or coordinate on ideas. Hey, what are you guys doing that's working? We might like to use some of that, or here's what we've done that's working. You guys might want to take a look at that. And we have been trying to do more and more of that since I took over about a little over a year ago. That's one of the areas that they really wanted me to concentrate on, was reaching out to other groups and trying to find a way to sort of consolidate that power a little bit, not really to give a head of the Tea Party, but just so that all of the members who are working within these groups feel like they're having a little more influence. So kind of, hey, we'll come down and help you guys now. Hey, you come up here and help us.
Mm-hmm. You just said since I took over. What do you mean by that?
When I took over as executive director in August of last year, that was just one of the things. You know, when they asked me to step up, well, what do you want me to do? What will my role be? And that was one of the things that we discussed, was reaching out to other groups and trying to sort of broaden our ability to have some influence.
What was your role prior to that?
Just a hard worker, just a worker bee.
Right.
Well, in St. Louis Tea Party Coalition, I was just a background player.
And then there was a change in the organization.
Well, yeah, it was just time. I mean, this is a job. You know, you do it for free. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. You take a lot of abuse. I mean, you get a lot of accolades too. Don't get me wrong, but you know, there's a lot that goes with it, especially for a completely volunteer position. So after a couple of years, I think you get a little bit burnt out.
Well, here you are on television here. You've also been on, I guess, Channel 2 with the Jaco show. Uh-huh. And I don't know, you've been other places mm-hmm. as well. So for narcissists, yes, you know, like, I don't know, there are many people out there in television land who thinks that somehow that there's something special about people who appear on the box. Mm. But in fact, most of the people who come through here are just regular folks who are just living their lives, and you know, they come and tell a story, right. Which is what you're doing right here, right now. And what I heard you just say was that you do this because you love it, and that you're not making a living out of it.
No, I mean, I do it because I believe in what we're doing. I believe in the message that we're trying to sell. I believe that it's better for the country. And, you know, personally, I'm all about personal responsibility, really believing in what you're doing. If you commit to something, then committing to it full force. And, I agreed to take on this position, so it takes precedence over other areas of my life. I mean, my personal life has suffered a little bit. My kids get a little annoyed. Luckily, they're all grown up, so it's not so bad. They're 20 and 21, so it's not like I have small children. If I had small children, it might have been a little bit more difficult of a decision to make, because it does take a lot of time. But I do it because I believe in what we're doing, and I want to sell that message. Everybody in this country has equal opportunity. It's all in what you make of it, and I strongly, strongly believe in that. I don't think the government can give you anything. Then you're just dependent on the government. I didn't want to be dependent on my parents, as I've pointed to so many times. Since I was 14, I've been struggling to get out of the house and get on my own and be my own woman. And once I had that opportunity, the last thing I wanted to do was go back and be dependent. And I think you need to sell that message. I believe in that message.
Well, here in the last 3 minutes, time goes by fast here. In the last 3 minutes, is there something you would like to cover that we haven't covered up to this point?
Gosh, I don't think so. I mean, Tea Party is out there strong. We're working hard.
What was the mood the evening of November 6th?
Oh, at first we were kind of excited, but then it was a little depressing. I think at one point we were all standing around, and I have to admit, I did lose heart for maybe a minute or two. And I looked at Bill and I said, has all this been for nothing? I mean, is this really what the American people want? They want this culture of dependence, and how do you fight against that? But within a few minutes I was like, the heck with them. This is one election, and it was never only about this election. Certainly this win would have been great. We would have loved to have taken the presidential election, and it would have given people, I think, a renewed sense of, whoo, I've been fighting and it really paid off. So it would have been a great battle, but this is a long, long battle. They've been working on us for 50 years or more, and now it's our turn. We've got to fight back. And so it was never only about November 6th. It was always about each individual election, each individual battle, and that it's going to be, I gave a speech not too long ago, and I said, listen, this is going to be more than just November. This is going to be 20 years or 50 years. It's going to take however long it's going to take, and we can't ever forget that, no matter what happens on the election. So I had to be reminded of that after Tuesday.
And you said earlier, but let's refocus on that briefly. You have people who are running for offices at all levels, including way down there at the school board level, which is actually a very important level, isn't it?
Right. Yes, absolutely. That's extremely important. And we love to see that. I mean, when we hear one of our members is going to run for something, we are so excited about that. I mean, we want our membership out there supporting them, working for them, handing out literature, doing get out the vote stuff, for any of those positions where that's applicable. That's what we want people doing, because that makes the most difference. It's a proven fact that the hand-to-hand contact or eye-to-eye contact, shaking hands, stuff like that, that's going to have the most influence on someone on how they're going to vote. And so we want to help folks with that as much as we can. As long as we have the manpower or the ability to do it, that's what we do.
In the last 30 seconds here, the Ron Paul faction of the Republican Party, do they have anything to do with the Tea Party?
We have some Ron Paul supporters who are within our groups, and I think on the small government and fiscal, I think we very much line up on those things. On some of the other things we may differ a little bit, but again, with a strong economy and a small government, a lot of the other stuff is going to follow naturally.
And lastly, in just one or two sentences, do you find you spend most of your time arguing or working with people, working as a team in the Tea Party?
Within our own group?
Yes.
Oh, we spend almost all of our time working together. We don't have a lot of petty spats in our Tea Party group.
Thank you very much for being with us
Thank
today.
you for having me.
And I've been speaking with Michelle Moore. She's the executive director of the St. Louis Tea Party Coalition. There was some contact information on the screen if you want to get in touch with her. Also, just go to the internet. I'm sure that you'll be able to find her. This program will also appear on YouTube, so you'll be able to see it again if you choose to. And to all those who are regular watchers of this program, thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you next time.